So who are the faithful in St. Patrick community in York? I went on your website and took your mission statement. I believe it's in your back cover. So the second talk that I'm going to guide you is a reflection on your mission statement. And in this world, the mission statement is who the essence of a company or a corporation or a community is all about. So, it says, and from your website, we, the faith community of St. Patrick, York, under the guidance of the Blessed Trinity, in union with our Holy Father, the Bishop of the Diocese of Harrisburg, and our pastor, dedicate ourselves to the service of God. As an open, loving, and caring parish community, we come together to worship God through the proclamation of the Word and the celebration of the sacraments. Our community reflects, embraces, and celebrates its rich diversity, leading us to a sense of belonging. All are welcomed. Through worship, evangelization, education, and service, we grow in a more personal knowledge of God and a deeper understanding and experience of faith. This enables us to joyfully share our faith with others. Strengthened by the presence of God, we reach out to meet the needs of the community through active participation, dedicated to recognizing and serving those needs. Let's focus on, within the first sentence, the guidance of the Blessed Trinity. Go back to my fifth grade class, back to Miguel, my resident philosopher. I was teaching my class about the Trinity, and that's a hard concept for adults to understand, let alone kids. And basically, for me to teach them the understanding how we have one God but three different persons, again, poke of the Holy Spirit said, look at your hand, okay? One hand, well, two hands, but one hand, and our hand has 5 fingers. It's one hand. And each of those fingers have a name and has a function. Move independently. So that's a symbol of the Trinity. And Patrick used the clover, the shamrock. So if you were trying to teach about the Trinity, what image would you use? And there Miguel's hand. And I knew, the moment I looked at his face, I knew he had something to share with us. Yes, Miguel. Well, prior to this, the day before in class, we had an assembly in which a group of students from the high school came into the school and did a presentation on lap harps, which are pretty neat instruments. Okay, so that was fresh in his mind. And different types of harps. Okay. So Miguel said to us, sister, for me, 10-year-old world, the Trinity is like a lyre, which is a certain type of lap harp. And I'm like, oh, really? How so? Okay, so a harp is shaped like, a lyre is shaped like this. Okay. Well, one side of the lyre is God the Father. The other side of the lyre is the Son. And since their heart beats as one, the strings between the two sides of the lyre are the heartstrings between the Father and the Son. I went, man, you're smart. And I said, where's the Holy Spirit? He goes, wait a minute, I'm getting there. Okay, we're all waiting. He said, when the Father looks at the Son, and the Son looks at the Father, It's kind of like, and he used two kids' names, Jerome and Stephanie, and I don't remember the names he used. When they look at each other, they go, ah. And of course, the kids giggled, and the two kids got really embarrassed. That's the breath of their love. Ah. That's the Holy Spirit. And as the Father and Son sigh at each other and create that breath, their heartstrings pluck. And that's the celestial music of the union of the Trinity. And I said to him, "You're only 10?" So guidance of the Holy Spirit. Guidance of our hearts beating one. Guidance of sitting and loving adoration of who God is and what He has done for us. Union with the Holy Father, the Bishop of the Diocese of Harrisburg and our pastor. Union. Our hearts beats as one with the church. Really? Our beloved deceased Bishop McFadden was a great educator. He had experience teaching in high school. And when he came to the diocesan office, he began a Lenten series with the seniors of the high schools in our diocese. So during Wednesdays of the entire season of Lent, he talked to the kids. And it was just awesome. It was a priest, the bishop. It was a bishop who understood how high school kids thought. Okay, and it was a 20-minute talk and then a Q&A. And the kids could ask Bishop McFadden anything that they wanted within reason. So I remember this kid, Kyle, stands up, presses the microphone button on, and he says, "Bishop, I'm Kyle from Trinity High School. What are you giving up for Lent?" And he mutes the mic and sits down. And in all humility, Bishop tells him, I don't remember. And he goes, "I have a question for you, Kyle. What are you giving up?" And all the kids in Trinity begin to laugh. And he goes, "I thought not. I encourage you to do something at least for Lent." So when Bishop Gaynor came to the diocese, and he, in all wisdom, decided to do some of the things that Bishop McFadden had in place. And there was Lent, and so Bishop McFadden did the last two, Bishop Gaynor did the last two series in the Lenten series. And he didn't understand the power of his presence through technology. Okay, so he wasn't getting the warm kudos, and he was deciding whether or not to stop that because he's not Bishop McFadden. Okay. Until he went to Bucknell University, and a soccer player came up to him and said, "Are you Bishop McFadden or Bishop Gaynor?" And Bishop said, "Yeah." "Well, I'm not Catholic, but I'm on the soccer team, and one of the seniors in your high school is a member of the soccer team. And he spoke to us about what you did during Lent. It was awesome. Don't stop it." And Bishop's like, "Wow, I didn't even think the kids were paying attention to me. That's pretty impressive." Union. I had the amazing gift of driving our bishop to our mother house in northern New Jersey, in which we had chatted about the Diocese of Harrisburg. And he loves the church. There is a distinct, deep, profound love for the church of Harrisburg. When he first came to do the video conferencing, and one of the kids asked Bishop Gaynor, he was just brand spanking new to our diocese, said, "Bishop, what did you give up for Lent?" And without stopping in a heartbeat, he said, "Lexington, Kentucky." Yeah, wow. He gave up his beloved Lexington, Kentucky for another beloved, Harrisburg. The union with your pastor. Really. If my experience of parishes, and I'm sure St. Pat's is similar, where heartbeats are beating one with the church, yeah, we get that. Our hearts beating one with our pastor. So when we don't agree with him, do we complain about him behind his back? Our hearts are not beating with him. His hand's at the till of the ship. This is the church in York. This is my church in York. Union, what does that really mean for you? Dedicate ourselves to the service of God. What does serving God mean in your life? I put my godson in that baptismal font and holding on to him dearly so I wouldn't drop him, because a squirmy little baby that's wet is kind of hard to hold on to. I was serving God. Whatever circumstance you find yourself, you can serve God. My friend Marla, that I spoke in the first talk about, as she was completely unable to move, was serving God because she can pray. In serving God, we are called to be holy. We all have been called by God. We all have been tapped on the shoulder. Not to do something, but to be something. What is it? One of the military slogans is be all that you can be. Join the military. To be something. That being is based on a spiritual aptitude that God has given us. Think of the words to be, and my English teacher in grade school would love this. Am is are, was were, be being been. It's one of the only words in the English language that completely changes depending upon the subject that it's near. Am is are, was were, being been. The verb to be changes. It cannot be like that with us. We should not change depending upon where our circumstances are. Our words should not change depending upon where we find ourselves. If we're truly adamant about our faith, if we truly understand who we called to be, it should not change. We echo Mary. Be it done unto me according to your word, and I'm going to add, and not mine. In the book of James we read, all good giving and every perfect gift is from above, coming down from the Father of lights, with whom there is no alteration or shadow caused by change. He willed to give us birth by the word of truth, that we may be kind of first fruits of his creatures. Humbly welcome the word that has been planted in you and is able to save your soul. Be doers of the word and not just hearers. Being open to God is obeying his will, and his will is found in the circumstances of your life. Yes, Lord. By saying yes to him, he gives us more peace, more joy, more grace than we can ever imagine. How do you do that? Good thing you asked. Pay attention to the circumstances of your life. Pay attention to who God made you. Very few people in the Harrisburg Diocese understand or realize that I have a speech impediment. As a child, I would stood up in front of my peers and would read, and nobody would understand me. As a young adult, I was told, quote, I would never hire you as a teacher because your students would never understand you. Really? I have a speech impediment, and yet I go around the diocese teaching and proclaiming his word, which is like, oh God, this is pretty funny. I think because of my speech impediment, I respect and understand words much more profound. I also have a learning disability. I could not read until I was in 6th grade. I have dyslexia. And at the age of 49, I began writing an article in the Catholic newspaper. Yeah, right. So sometimes in our weakest parts of our person, if we open that to grace, God makes it strong. St. Paul talks about that. I'm a comic strips and a superhero fan. I love Spider-Man. I really do. And there's a great line in the Spider-Man story that says, with great power comes great responsibility. Every single person here is a superhero. Because you received your cape, and it was white at the moment of your baptism. So what gives you life? What makes you get up in the morning? What are you good at? What are constant patterns in your life that makes you noticeable and gives you clues in what your design and your calling is? Let's look at the saints. Look at St. Paul. He was a zealot before his conversion. He was so much into keeping Judaism pure that he went around and persecuted Christ. The moment in which Christ took a 2x4, smacked him over his head, fell to the ground, who are you? I'm Christ who you are persecuting. The moment he realized who Christ was, he was still a zealot, but he turned it around. God's calling goes way beyond what you do. It's who you are. It's who you are. Who you are a son, you are a daughter of God. You are the reflection in flesh of the Trinity. Do you allow God to be seen through you? Think about that. Own it. We go on to the mission statement. We come together to worship God through the proclamation of the Word and the celebration of the sacraments. And there's 3 aspects in that whole sentence that I want to dwell on. First, thankfulness and gratitude. The very word Eucharist means thanksgiving. Do we really understand what gratitude's all about? Again, back to the Bronx. I was teaching a 3rd grade catechetical class. So there was a 2-year program in that parish in which the kids had to be in catechetical class the year before their first communion and then the year of their first communion. So this 3rd grade missed the boat, and 2nd grade too, so they were in it grade 3. And my aunt, who was living at the time, grew up in an orphanage and in the South Bronx. And she realized my father's parish was the parish in which I was teaching, which is just amazing. And she realized that poverty was something that, especially around the holidays, which allowed kids sometimes to hang their heads because they couldn't experience the holidays the way everybody else they saw was celebrating. So at Thanksgiving that year, she pressed $100 in my hand and said to me, "I want you to make Christmas happen to your kids." Wow. Okay, so I went out and bought to the Dollar General and bought a whole bunch of trinkets and paper stockings, with cotton balls, made stockings. We had juice, we had cookies, and I wrote a letter to each of the kids, both in my grades, in my class, and in my CCD class, telling them that I'm praying for them, thanking them for that one gift of their personality, and that one personality flaw, encourage them to work on that. Okay. And I did that for 50 kids. Yeah, I spent from Thanksgiving to Christmas writing those letters. So my CCD class, the last day of catechetical class before Christmas break, we had the same thing. And there was Jose. Jose was the dirtiest kid that I taught. And his clothes were 3 sizes too big. And he was a scrawny little child. And he had these pockets in his pants that were like side saddles. That you kind of have a sense that they were only his belongings. So I gave them the little trinkets and the juice and the cookie, and I dismissed the class. I walked out the front door with them. I came back, and there was Jose standing by the door. And I said, "What's up, Jose?" And he said, "Sister, I want you to know that the Christmas present that you gave us was the only Christmas present I'm going to get this year. Oh, we're too poor to celebrate Christmas in my house." I just wanted to hold him. He said, "But Christmas is not about receiving. It's about giving. I want to give you a present." And he reaches down into his pockets, into his saddlebags, and he gives to me this Cabbage Patch action figure that was grubby, and you knew it was his toy. And he said, "Merry Christmas." I felt like the widow with the 2 copper coins. And I had to accept it. I had to. I felt terrible taking it, his toy. But I knew it was given to me in all love. And I took it, and I hugged him, and I blessed him, and he went skipping down the hallway outside. 4 years later, Jose was killed in a drive-by. As a 9-year-old, he understood what giving life was. He understood what gratitude was. And he lived it. And he was only a child. Second aspect, humility. Your mission statement says, all are welcomed. We're dependent on God. And not only are we dependent on God, we're also dependent on one another. You have no idea, as a sister and as a celibate, how awesome it is to stand in the pews among the parishioners of my parish and watching the amazing family moment of Eucharist. All are welcomed. Without humility, relationships are shallow because we tend to put ourselves on the top. We tend to look down our nose at everybody else. We tend to find a scapegoat and to blame others for our own personal shortcomings. Without humility, we will never, ever, ever, ever change for the better. 2 years ago, I was I was diagnosed with Meniere's, which is vertigo and it's foodborne. Okay, as I was doctoring for that, my doctor said in all her wisdom, "Do you know what the root cause of your medical problems are?" I was like, "No. You're obese. And not only you're obese, but you're morbidly obese," which is you're 18 pounds from being morbidly obese, which I knew was 100 pounds overweight. I said, "Yes, Weight Watchers." I said to her, "You don't understand. I live in community. We eat what we're served unless there's a medical reason for that." And she was like, "Well, then I need a plan. You need a plan." Okay, so I took it to prayer. And I was praying in front of an icon of the humility of Christ, which is the icon of the scourge Christ, the bloody and beaten Christ. And I said to Christ, "My beloved, I can't control what I eat." I think it was the most profound prayer I've ever prayed. I can't control what I put into my mouth. But I know you can. I need your help. And with that, again, image, my Holy Spirit went boop, and I was reminded of a conversation I had with a priest who said that he lost 25 pounds by not eating processed sugar. And I was like, "Is that all?" And he said, "Yes." He said, "Am I addicted?" And he said, "You know you are." So just like alcoholism, just like drug addiction, I have an eating disorder. I'm a truly addicted to sugar. I'm in recovery. I've been through a 12-step program, and I've lost 65 pounds in a year and a half. You must be so strong. No, if I was strong, I wouldn't have had an addiction. I am broken. And because of my brokenness, God is using that to make me glow. People say to me, "You are different." I'm at my high school weight right now. My doctor wants 10 more pounds off of me. He's like, "Yeah, okay, fine." I am at my high school weight. The addiction comes from self-hatred that came from a childhood trauma, which I thought I dealt with. Yeah, no. The moment of me recognizing the fact that I was the place in my heart, in my being, in which I was most broken and most vulnerable, rather than putting it with the grace and the love of my beloved, I was filling it with food. My choice. I was having an affair with food. And my beloved gave me time, waited for me to wake up. What earthly suitor would do that? Wow. Humility, standing knowing that I am broken. Standing that people around me are equally as broken, even if they don't know that. They are. And loving them because of that. Humility is truth on who we are. We are redeemed sinners. Third aspect, courage. There's got to be tremendous courage to commit to reconciliation. There's got to be tremendous courage to stand humbled, knowing that you are broken and will be broken until you meet God face to face. Because only through Him can you become whole. In order to be courageous enough to face that, you have to be centered in prayer. Every single day. Every single day. So, through prayer, we are thankful and humble enough to accept our limitations, our brokenness, in order to trust God. That's what real conversion is all about. So we become more Eucharist. We become what we eat when we become more selfless, more thankful, more humble, and more courageous. Go on to your mission statement. Through worship, evangelization, education, and service, we grow in more personal knowledge of God and a deeper understanding and the experience of faith. We educate our minds. We chew on it. We ponder, giving a Marian word. We ponder on the word in our heads. We let it sink down into our hearts. We make the word in our heads our own in our hearts. And then we express it in our hands. How do we increase our knowledge? Catechetical classes. Bible studies in the parish. Read some more. Talk about it. Talk about the grace that you receive in prayer. When I found that video on YouTube about the power of words yesterday morning, I began to cry. It's like, okay, I'm not done yet. Keep teaching me. Share that with other people. Pray. Be humble enough to know that there's no way that you can understand who God is. There's a great story, and I don't know if it's urban legend or it's true, in which St. Augustine or Thomas Aquinas, I'm not sure which, was on a shore, and they were contemplating, I think it was Thomas Aquinas, contemplating the Trinity. And this little child had dug a hole, and it was running out to the ocean, filling up a bucket. Who was it? Who was it? Okay, Augustine. Filling up a bucket and pouring the water into the hole. And he was like, little boy, what you're doing is impossible. And the child looks up to Augustine and says, and what you're contemplating is impossible for you. And then disappeared. You allow the knowledge to sink deep into the heart. And that knowledge, once it's expressed through action, is based on personality, your gifts, and your stages of life. Every single time we receive the Eucharist, we reach out with our hands and we beg. Or we open up our mouths and stick our tongues out and we beg to be fed. Our beloved is seeking a relationship with you. Ever new, ever deepen. And you are called to constantly explore and deepen that relationship. To give and to bring joy.